That's a bingo. Is that the way you say it? That's a bingo.
You just say bingo.
Bingo! How fun!
All right, That's a Bingo is back. It is Friday, December 11th, 2020. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined on my screen by Matt Pine. Already in a fit of giggles here. I don't know what's going on, but I'm happy to see your face.
Happy to see your face, buddy. Just glad that we clarified for the listeners. It is 2020 still, unfortunately. But we're
this year's been a while. Feels like it's still March. Am I right? Let me tell you something.
In these trying times. We're just about 20 days out from 2021. And, other than that whole vaccine thing, it's looking up. It's looking, movies are coming, and it's looking like 2021 is going to be a much, much better year.
Aside from the whole vaccine thing.
Well, I mean, in addition to that, I should say.
I was going to say, I feel like that's...
It's very good. I'm not one of those...
Well, you have told me privately that, off air that you are an anti-vaxxer.
I do espouse this opinion in private.
Sorry to bring that to the forefront. I mean,
it is what it is.
Where else to do it than a podcast, though?
No better way to start a podcast than anti-vax talk. So, yeah.
I just bring the heat, man. You know me.
Yeah, of course. But excited for this episode. We're talking a little Mank.
We're just talking Mank.
Just talking Mank the whole time. We're just talking Mank,
Mank? How many times?
Mank.
How many times do they say Mank in the movie, by the way?
I don't know. I was too drunk. I played the drinking game. Every time they say the name Mank, I took a shot. So
like by the time he's like falling backwards onto the carousel of luggage, you're like just blacking out in your living room.
Mm-hmm. I was just trying to impersonate Mank himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's
blackout drunk.
That's why that run sheet that you sent me for this episode was like 300 pages long. I really had to whittle that down, but we're just volume shooting right now.
Yeah, love it. But it should be a fun episode. We both enjoyed Mank, I think, pretty much equally with our scores there, and got a ton of news here to get into.
Yeah, so without further ado.
Alrighty. So it looks though 2021 is going to be the year of streaming. It's a little sad here. The news coming out that movie theaters are going to have a release, and then on the same day, a lot of these movies are going to HBO Max. I believe that was Warner Brothers that came out with that.
Yes, yeah. So Warner's owns HBO Max, and like now they're getting to a point where they're doing a lot of their content on there, and like a lot of original content's going to be coming to it. They're like considering changing the name to like Warner Brothers Max or something like that, which, I got to be honest, doesn't roll off the tongue quite the same. But
WB Max, HBO, yeah, it's not the same. Not great.
A little weird.
Not great. And like I said, this could signal the end or the death of the movie theater, which I know we've talked about before is kind of a thing that we like to enjoy, from time to time. Some of those blockbusters, some of those Tarantino movies. But I think this was coming for a long time. I remember when the movie The Interview came out on streaming, and I'm like, oh, they can just do this. They can just release a movie. Like, you can just get it on demand anytime. Remember thinking then, okay, this is like the start of the end. But it is sad to say, I guess.
Yeah, I think to your point there, like, I think this is not necessarily the end of movie theaters, just in general. Like, I think people are getting really sort of, I don't know if they're down in the dumps about it. Some people want it to happen, but getting really...
A little hyperbole being used here.
Yeah, like there's some ideas being thrown around that like movie theaters are never going to exist anymore. I think at least for the rest of our lifetimes, like we're going to be able to, like, when Quentin Tarantino drops a new movie, the only one that he's got left, I guess, and then whichever other auteurist directors that like have all this cachet and a lot of money behind them, I feel like we're always going to be able to walk into a theater and check those movies out. It depends on what type of theater it is. I don't know if we're going to be getting the AMC treatment where there's, a million people there kind of just like taking the family out to a movie or whatever, just kind of casually. But, there might be some more boutique type experiences, like Alamo Draft House is one that we don't have here, but like it's supposed to be really nice. Like I think maybe not a lot more of those, but definitely some of those are going to crop up. I think we saw drive-in theaters kind of make a little bit of a comeback, at least here in Maryland with quarantine. So I think it's going to be a little bit different, but I don't know if they're ever going to totally go away. And I mean, I hope they don't. Like we mentioned, it's kind of a thing that, frankly, I was like the last couple of years just starting to get back into, and like was getting excited about the fact that I could just use it as like an excuse to like get out on a Friday night if I wasn't doing anything or whatever. Just go to a movie, check a movie out. So, and do it by myself sometimes too. That was a great thing that I started to work into the rotation. So hopefully we can get back to that at some point. I think we will, but it's not going to be the mammoth industry that it was at one point.
Yeah, I'm definitely all in for, Denis, not Dennis Villeneuve movies. If I could see those in theaters, I'm definitely gonna go for it. Yeah, I think like you said, they're gonna center it around the experience of the whole thing, like the drive-ins or the draft house, where you can drink at the theater. I think those are gonna be the way forward. And that does kind of lend us into the next bit of news comes from Christopher Nolan. And no, it's not that Christopher Nolan loves Fast and the Furious. Come on, everybody knows that. It's that he kind of bashed a little bit on the decision, and he called HBO Max the worst streaming platform.
I don't understand why like he had to come at HBO Max as the worst streaming platform. I can't imagine Chris is sitting down watching streaming movies to begin with, and he hates them that much. I didn't read his exact quotes. Let me see if I can pull them up here. Okay. But it like, as much as I love Chris and like I love his movies, like he swung big and he missed on Tenet. Like he did what he had to do to get it into theaters. He did not want to go into streaming, and frankly, like that kind of pissed me off a little bit. Like I wasn't going to go to the movie theaters. Like there's some, as much as I want them to stick around, like you're talking about something that is bigger than like movies, like a pandemic, like, it's killing however many millions of people in the world. Like maybe just a little bit of sensitivity. And I understand like he's the tourist and the bad boy, and he likes to get precious about this. And our guy Quentin does too. He thankfully hasn't said anything in that regard on this kind of stuff, but it comes from, I think, a little bit of a place of being tone deaf, where like you're just used to pretty much ever since probably the Batman trilogy, you're used to making high profile blockbuster movies. And what's interesting about Chris is like he kind of would maybe pride himself on not being this mainstream guy, but he does a lot of mainstream movies. He does a lot of blockbusters. I mean, pretty much ever since Memento, that's kind of been his thing.
Yep.
And, he wants them to get this wide release. So you can't be like Mr. Autorist, like, all right, I'm going to get all precious about this kind of stuff and then like still try to push like this massive release for Tenet that like literally nobody was going to go and see it, which just wasn't going to happen. Of course it was going to fail. And now here we are, and he's lashing out. It's like, come on, man.
I mean, not releasing Tenet is partially like, that's partially the reason this is happening. Like,
yeah,
these big blockbusters that fail miserably at the box office. What do you expect is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, he sent it out there like your boy Garfield and Hacksaw Ridge with no gun to defend itself, and it got summarily cut down. So as much as I'm excited to sit down and watch that whenever the fuck it comes out, I don't even know to stream it.
Yeah, a couple days.
Yeah,
one demand, so it's not really true.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't care. I'll watch it. I'm sure I'll like it, but it all could have been avoided. And I think his hubris, he swung and he missed a little bit here, and now he's lashing out about it. Not a great look.
Yeah, not great. I appreciate these directors in the sense that they want to keep theaters around, and they're very old school. So I do appreciate that, but I think these comments were severely misguided. So we'll see how it shakes out. But some more news here. Spider-Man, it looks like we are joining Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire in one movie, it appears. I was a huge fan, which I don't believe you saw, but of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the animated movie.
I haven't checked it out yet. You gave me the recommendation, so I will at some point.
It is fantastic. But it looks like they're going to be joining a live action version of that. So I'm pretty excited for that. Not that I'm a big Spider-Man guy, but like to see Tobey Maguire, chalk it up again.
Yeah, Player X getting back in the mix. You got pretty much everyone from that that era. Kirsten Dunst, I think, is coming back. Pretty much all like the guy who played Doc Ock in like the Raimi movies coming back.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, like as much as we rag on the superhero thing, like those movies were a big part of my childhood. The original Spider-Mans and then Batman came out shortly after the Nolan movies. So I got a lot of love for those movies for sure. I mean, they're kind of a little cringy to look back on in some ways, but it's cool to see, and the memes have been good. So that's always a good sign.
I know it's not possible, but Willem Dafoe, I would kill for him to be back in it. Just saying.
Wait, was it not possible? Is he canceled?
Well, didn't he die?
Willem Dafoe died?
No, didn't the Green Goblin die?
Oh yeah, I don't. Well, it seems like they're bending time and space with this movie. So
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. But whatever.
Thanks. Now you ruined my rewatch. Of the movies.
Did I spoil it for you?
Yeah.
19 years late. Okay.
I'm also something of a superhero movie fan myself. Hashtag Willem Dafoe meme.
Dude, if Willem Dafoe died, I would just be depressed for a week.
Yeah, that would be.
Love that guy.
It's like the Michael Scott, Steve Martin. I never tell you about the day Steve Martin died. Steve Martin's not dead, Michael. No, I know. I'm just saying that when he does, it'll be the worst day of my life.
Gotta love it. Speaking of Michael Scott, our buddy Bob Odenkirk, who just missed out on being Michael Scott, going to be the lead and starring in a new movie called Nobody. I gave him the moniker Badass Bob, and I saw somewhere that he is the John Wick of the suburbs in this movie.
Yeah, you got to think that's exactly how they pitched it. That's exactly what the trailer looked like. Adam Naiman like retweeted it this morning. I had no idea this was coming, so like I just clicked on it fresh. I had no idea what it was. Pretty cool trailer. Like I'm not huge like blind or brainless action type guy. This might fall into that category, but I still haven't seen John Wick. I'd like to check that out. I'm a big Keanu fan. Shout out to him in Cyberpunk 2077, by the way, which I was playing a little bit of today. Yeah, so really excited for this. Everyone knows I'm a big shot Bob guy. Better Call Saul, one of the great characters, and probably the best spinoff ever made. So I'm excited to see him have some success in the wake of that. Also, Porno Gil from the episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and great as the sort of I don't want to call him a bad guy, but not the smartest police officer in Fargo season 1. So Bob has been up and down all throughout the annals of TV. I'm excited to see him make the jump to action star here.
Yeah, comes from a pretty talented family too. I know his brother is one of the head writers on The Simpsons, so very talented family.
Yeah, for sure.
Also did love in the trailer when he shot through the cereal box, just like in Kill Bill. Love that.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. I did notice that.
Pretty sick.
Yeah.
And then final piece of news here, your boy, and this came with the giant drop of the Disney Investor Day, but your boy Hayden Christensen going to reprise his role here as Darth Vader.
Chuck, you're supposed to support me. I told you a million times, Chuck.
For our listeners don't know, it's a little, I believe that's a Shattered Glass reference there.
Oh, yeah. Hayden Christensen's seminal role, by the way. I ironically love him as Darth Vader, but that's truly a great performance. So.
I mean, if you want to see the peak of acting in Hollywood, you want to watch that movie for sure.
I have the high ground now.
Yeah, well, there you go. Believe that does it for news. I don't think you. What's that?
He's gonna be sick. Like he's gonna be.
It's gonna be sick.
He's gonna be playing like a middle-aged Darth Vader fighting Obi-Wan. It sounds cool. Like I haven't been all the way in on some of like the Star Wars reboot stuff. I'm probably gonna try and watch this.
Oh my god, yeah, it's gonna be multiple viewings there.
Yeah, for sure.
Didn't know if you had anything else for news though.
Yeah, I think what did I have? So we had a new project with Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone. Starring in a movie by Josh and Benny Safdie, who I think they might be acting in it too. Let me pull this up.
Oh,
see if I can find it. But it sounds really cool.
Interesting.
As I continue to look here, sorry about not having.
I was going to say, has Josh acted before? I know Benny has, right? That's the
Benny was in Good Time.
Good Time.
I don't know if Josh has.
Okay. Have you ever heard interviews with them?
Yeah, they were on Simmons right around the time Uncut Gems came out, and they were really good.
Josh does all the talking too. It's funny.
Yeah, he does. And then Benny's like the back. That's a funny dynamic. So this from Discussing Film. Emma Stone has been cast in The Curse from Nathan Fielder and the Safdie brothers. The genre-bending comedy explores how a curse disturbs the relationship of a newly married couple as they try to conceive a child while co-starring on their new HGTV show. A lot going on there.
there's a lot to take in. I don't know if I have initial comments or not, but I'm going to watch it. Let's be real.
I'm excited to see them try something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hopefully, I'm kind of hoping this isn't like the thrill ride type deal. As
Yeah,
much
I mean-
as it worked for them the first 2 times. Like,
Yeah, I mean, their movies definitely require like a Xanax at the beginning to chill the fuck out. But yeah, I would love to do Good Time at some point on this podcast. I do like getting into the Safdie brothers a little bit. Curious to see how this.
we're gonna do Gems too. We got some stuff to work out with that movie, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, Emma Stone, great actress. Love seeing anything she's in. So I'll definitely be tuning into this one.
Yeah, I just added your boy what is it, La La Land to the list. I'll be watching one pretty soon. So
Ooh, look at you. All right, I like it.
I'm just trying to get on your level here.
Gonna take some time, but you're trying.
Yeah, you know, it's we
See
can't
if
all
it
be
does.
like you, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You watch all the movies, and I just love and respect the troops and the environment. Quite the trade-off.
I think they're about the same, right, in terms of giving back, right?
Yeah, you got to think that that's just like on the scale, it's just totally balanced.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, I think we can get to our movie review for this week.
Mank, it's Orson Welles.
Just call me Ahab.
So
Just like that impression.
we're doing Mank, of course. The David Fincher Netflix movie, screenplay by his father, Jack Fincher, who is, I believe, 17 years passed on at this point.
Mhm.
A little bit of a passion project type deal from him, but a lot of effort put into it, too. I mean, visuals interesting, characters interesting, story well written, dialogue amazing. This is a very different type of like big movie, and even like different for David Fincher. I didn't know what I was expecting. I don't know if I got what I was expecting, but my general sense on it is that I really, really liked it, and we got a great movie.
Yes, I think I firmly believe the general public will not and has not really enjoyed it all that much. It's very much a self-indulgent movie, very much like you have to have an understanding of what like the writing process is like, what old Hollywood was like. So I think in that sense, if you're not in tune with that, you don't have to necessarily watch Citizen Kane before this, but it helps. If you're not really in tune with that, I don't think this movie is going to be for you.
And if you don't like it, it's not going to be for you either. So like Alan Sepinwall is one of my favorite. He's a TV critic. I think he dabbles in movies too, but he writes for Rolling Stone. And he didn't like it. And he was tweeting about it. And he was like, it's not shocking. Something to the effect of like, it's not shocking to me that like a sort of self-indulgent story where the characters are interesting, but the story isn't especially compelling, you know, is made like in the wake of a movie exactly like that with Citizen Kane. So like, it sounds like to me, like he didn't like Citizen Kane to begin with. So naturally you're not going to like this. This is obviously a companion piece to Citizen Kane. And, you know, does a lot of the same things, which for people in 2020, like we hit on, like that may or may not work, because like that's a movie that I feel like, you know, ex 30-year-old that was like, you know, watches Marvel movies or whatever, tries to go back and watch Citizen Kane. Maybe he's not going to be super into it. And like, he's probably not going to be super into this then too, because it's taking a lot of the same ideas, is sort of built the same way. And it deliberately calls back to it, with the way that it's shot, all in black and white. And the way that the characters are like kind of deliberately like hard to understand at times. Like it's, you know, it's kind of an ode to, like you mentioned, that era of Hollywood, but it's not like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood type movie where you're only going back to like 1969, which is a long time ago, but you can like picture that in your mind a little bit more if you're somebody like our age. Going back even 40 years before that, like some people probably can't even like picture what that's like. So you're talking about like this guy Herman Mankiewicz, who like nobody knows who that is really, let's be frank.
Mhm.
And his struggles, which like nobody really cares about, except like if you're into movies like we are and like Jack and David Fincher are. You know, it's like the mass appeal isn't going to be there, but if you like it, you really, really like it. So I think that's kind of in the same way that like I get that. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my favorite Tarantino movie. I've said that on here. Like but I get it if like it's not for everyone else. Like it's got a little bit of a smaller appeal base, and I feel like that's kind of the same thing that we're dealing with here, maybe in some different ways. But the movies where like Hollywood is writing about itself, I can see people kind of being naturally averse to it and being like, oh, you guys are like so up your own ass and like all about yourself. Like maybe stop making such self-indulgent stuff. But for me, you know, I'm a nerd about that stuff, so I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at a couple of things. We both enjoyed it. We both gave it a 9 out of 10. But it is the only big movie out. And during this time of the year, this is kind of when all the big movies of the year hit. So I think it's going to get a little bit unfairly scrutinized, especially if it's up for nominated for Best Picture. I think it's going to be unfairly scrutinized, and probably compared to last year where it definitely should not be. And I've only seen it once. I think I definitely missed a lot of the intricacies the first time. There were cameos by Clark Gable, John Barrymore, and Shirley Temple, and I missed a couple of those. So it's an ode to old Hollywood. It's an ode to Jack Fincher, David's father, and I can really appreciate it for that, at least.
Yeah, our guy Fantasy tweeted before it had even released on Netflix, like, I suggest you watch it, go for a walk or something, like, you know, do something else for a little while, then sit down and watch it again. And like I had planned to, frankly, haven't been able to quite yet, but I'm sure I'll get back around to it, because it does feel like that sort of, and that's the same thing I mentioned. Like I'm going to keep comparing it to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but like my thought on that movie is it gets better every time you watch it. There's just like something there every time to latch onto. I think that's probably going to be the case with this. And like, there's stuff that like I did latch onto, like some of the cameos, like Bill Nye as Upton Sinclair, I thought was really random and really funny. And like I was on like my second whiskey, so I was kind of like, what
rubbing your eyes, and
is that Bill Nye? Like, yeah, so like that was funny. Like the way the shot, kind of that like creamy, like, and you know, I'm not Mr. like understand hashtag cinematography or whatever, but like kind of the creamy, like, dreamy color palettes, and like that like make it stand out even for being black and white, because some things just do black and white and they just look like it's 2020 and let's just throw a black and white filter on there. Like this looks like it was specifically shot and done that way. Maybe it was, I'm sure there's a lot of post-production stuff there, but that was cool. The cigarette burns like on the film, like which you see in a lot of really movies. Yeah, that was awesome. And you really don't see that with movies these days. So just like a lot of really cool little touches like that, that like we keep saying, like somebody like you and I are going to appreciate that. Maybe not everyone else, and that's okay. It's not their cup of tea. But I do want to ask, what was your viewing experience with it? Because I made an event out of it, because we just aren't getting stuff like this to kind of eventize and have fun with in the same way that we would in a normal year. So I waited. It came out on Thursday night, Friday morning. I didn't want to just like watch it like Friday morning, like just like in my bed or whatever. So I waited till Friday night. Like I said, poured out a drink or two and sat down, got a fire going, and broke into it. So how did you experience this?
Yeah, I mean, that's very similar to what I went through. Normally, like 90% of the movies I watch are on my laptop. So I think there's some that deserve the viewing experience of watching it on the TV. And that's what I did. Watched in my living room. So I think there's certain movies like that. And you know, we can't go to movie theaters, so we have to make it as much of an event as possible. So yeah, that's what I did. I enjoyed it. I'm probably going to go back to it at some point. It's just, I don't know. I just need some time to stew on it a little bit, but
just keep digesting it.
Yep, keep on digesting.
But yeah, I mean, definitely best movie of the year for me so far.
Yes, I don't see where the competition is. You know, Trial of Chicago 7 was in the 7s for me. I liked The Five Bloods, but it was in the 8s. Palm Springs I really liked, but I don't think that's a Best Picture movie. So I'm kind of excited to see what we get here in the beginning of 2021. Some of those movies I'm pretty amped to see, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Oscars in April, so there's probably going to be still some competition for this for Best Picture, which I think, like, even with how kind of weird and intimate it is, it might have a shot. But we'll see what comes out in the next couple of months, like we said.
I think if you're talking, you know, nominations, I think Amanda Seyfried's going to be right up there for Best Supporting Actress. I thought she was
screenplay definitely too.
Screenplay, for sure. You
Music,
know,
I mean, it's Trent
score.
was Trent and Atticus, which like I was kind of surprised by. I know they like to work with Fincher, but like him getting them to do a project like this, I feel like that maybe not up their alley, but those guys, I guess they can do anything. So
yeah, I mean, some of those early scenes, I noticed the music was like throughout the entire movie in the first like 20 to 30 minutes. I think that kind of guided it along when, yes, the dialogue was really good, but it's also like the subject matter is kind of boring.
And it's like, it's not kinetic at all. Like it's a guy just in his bed for like the first hour. Like he gets into like a car crash, which is like a really funny, well done scene, I think. And then from there on, it's just like him in the bed, just like writing and drinking and like doing whatever else, and like a lot of flashbacks and stuff obviously peppered throughout that keep it a little more kinetic than it sounds. But it's not the most like fast-paced type deal, but I was pretty compelled by the story. I latched onto the dialogue, and I had my phone turned off, so I was just kind of plugged in. I enjoyed it. I just kind of sunk into that world for a couple hours, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, that alludes to one of the categories that I have for my That's a Bravo, but just a couple other things before we get to categories. I really think this was the most non-Fincher-esque movie. Like, it didn't feel like a David Fincher at all to me. I don't know how many movies you've seen of his, but just didn't really get that feel, which is totally fine.
Yeah, it felt, it feels very sort of, how do I put this? It kind of feels like he's sort of thinking a lot more than he usually does. Like his movies, it feels like he's just very much making a statement, and like he's kind of dominating you a little bit. He's like, "Yep, you're just gonna sit here and you're gonna like sit through the
audience."
Yeah, exactly. Whether you like what you're watching or not, like it's so high quality and it's so like you cannot look away. This is kind of really not that. It's very self-reflective. It feels like he's kind of trying to communicate with his dad in one way or another, which I think is nice. And and maybe he's getting a little older and he's ready to kind of open up a little bit more, which is good for you, David Fincher.
Similarities to Citizen Kane. I think the most pronounced one was when he like dropped the bottle of liquor, and that like is dropping the snow globe in Citizen Kane. I don't know how many you noticed. I thought the actor who played Citizen Kane did a pretty good job. I think he got the voice down pretty well.
Orson Welles.
Yeah.
I thought he was great, actually. Like he gets the voice down, and he's got like the kind of physicality that you see from Welles in Citizen Kane. I haven't really seen any other footage of Welles really in that movie, right. But I thought he nailed it. And like they obviously did some effects with his voice to like give it that booming effect.
Yep.
Like Welles was kind of able to just do that naturally. But yeah, I thought he did a really good job. He was kind of likable and hateable at the same time. Like probably like Orson Welles was in real life. Like, okay, dude, like fucking 24-year-old, like wonder kid. I get it. Like, so I thought he really nailed it. I liked him. I also liked our boy Tywin Lannister as William Randolph Hearst. I thought he crushed it too. And as far as like similarities to Citizen Kane, what's so cool about it is like it colors like how Mank arrived at a lot of that stuff. Like some of the stuff you see from Hearst is just in Citizen Kane, and like his house is just like you can tell that's where like he gets Xanadu from. So like I thought it was really cool where like they don't explicitly state that in the dialogue or anything, but you can just tell it's like, oh, like that's where you got like the animal pen or whatever. Like that's where you got like the castle look from. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you can see exactly where he got his inspiration, like the whole like political race in California, relating that to Citizen Kane, obviously William Randolph Hearst. I also want to say I've been to Hearst Castle. It is really awesome. Yes, I went back in 2016, right after college, to a trip to California. And
you also are always telling me that you're a big William Randolph Hearst guy. So able to get there and get all that perspective, it must have been really special for you.
Big time. He's a Renaissance man. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a big fan of hemp. I'll say that.
I can see that.
Okay, so I guess we can get on to some categories. You just mentioned you love Charles Dance, who played William Randolph Hearst. That would be my Throwing Tomatoes. Didn't dig that accent. I don't think he put in as much work as he could have in the American accent. Full disclosure, I don't know what William Randolph Hearst sounded like, but it just the English accent bled through a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, I could see that. I think I probably either didn't notice or blocked it out, but like guys talked like that in some, maybe not exactly like that, but
if you're like high class, you kind of talked with a little.
It was something called like an Atlantic accent or something. It's like like that, like the way they used to talk, or like you can see them talking in movies like that, just kind of like that sort of high class type deal. So yeah, maybe I missed that, but I don't know. I just thought he had like this great sort of physical bearing, this imposing presence that like obviously you're familiar with if you've seen Game of Thrones. I think he kind of translates that over pretty well. And he also like, what I like about the story and his performance is that I think he sells it pretty well that like he's more amused by Mank than anything, at least early on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of an interesting dynamic where like Mank is kind of like not a big fan of him. And he's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like you can be my organ grinder's monkey. So
The parable of the organ grinder monkey. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you ever saw that documentary on Netflix with William F. Buckley versus Gore Vidal. They were like two political figures in the 60s. And they were Americans and they talked that way. They talked with like an English accent almost. So I could see it. Did you have anything for Throwing Tomatoes?
I didn't write anything down for that category. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of really hard to say much. Like maybe like clarifying some of the stuff going on with the story a little bit. Like you mentioned the gubernatorial race. Like I'm sure like not a lot of people are really going to understand that. I think they explained it pretty well, but like maybe a little bit more color on like what the stakes were. And like I get that it's very self-reflective and it's like not trying to like be Mr. Expository dialogue, but like maybe just something to help explain the stakes a little bit better and explain Mank's connection to it. But yeah, other than that, like it's, I think it's limited in what it is, but I pretty much liked everything that it tries to do.
Yeah, part was funny when they're like, oh, these are hired actors who like talk about their political opponents.
Yeah, it's the fake news connection. Like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right.
As much as we always think everything in our life is like a new phenomenon, like
it is not.
You look back through history and yeah, it repeats itself.
So for my That's a Bravo, you mentioned, you turn your phone off. I really enjoyed the non-linear timeline, the jumping between the new scenes where it had like the exterior and then the location like you would for a script. It was a movie that made me really pay attention. And I can't say that there's too many movies, especially new movies these days that do that. And, it's kind of a novel thing. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah. For me, it's just like in that regard, it's just attention to detail. Like it's every little thing is taken care of. Like I think of, like Paul Thomas Anderson is like talks about like how like you take care of something and you like kind of make it your own. And like, you put your entire personality into it. And like, that's kind of what I got from this. Like, he took care of like the cigarette burns. Like that's sick. And like like we mentioned that palette, maybe it was like sort of redone and touched up, but it looks like a movie that came out in the 1940s. Like, and that's a good thing. Like, I think they nailed it pretty well. And obviously there's some touch-ups going on. My only complaint is that like, man, this would have been fucking sick to go see in a theater and you just like see it in like IMAX or something. You should like lay back and like have a beer. Like that would have been nice. But even on like my TV, I thought the visuals were amazing. Screenplay was really great, and like you mentioned, the exterior type thing, like using the sound of the typewriter, I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, I just like the production, I guess, would be my overall sort of That's a Bravo.
Keeping score, just gonna kind of stick with the whole Atticus and Trent Reznor thing. They did the soundtrack for Social Network, for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, probably a lot more Fincher movies that I'm not aware of. But I thought they actually nailed it, and it's not something like you said in their wheelhouse per se. But they nailed the era, and just like the music was, I think the dialogue kind of that uppity type dialogue I think was really good.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it's obviously like a movie about the 30s and 40s. Like we're not going to be able to pick songs out and like it kind of runs together after a certain point, but it nails the aesthetic of it basically, which is pretty much all you can ask to do with like a period piece going back this far. So yeah, they nailed it.
All right. Getting on to quote and quotables, favorite quotes from the movie.
Sure, there's a few here.
There's quite a few here. We got, you cannot capture a man's entire life in 2 hours. All you can hope is to leave the impression of one. Herman Mankiewicz.
Which is obviously the line that explains Rosebud in Citizen Kane.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. I understand. This is Herman talking to Orson Welles. I understand we've got 90 days. Orson, let's aim for 60. Mank, he's just cut a month. And he was talking to Houseman. And Herman, I used to do it in 5 for you at the Mercury. This is leisurely.
The way that Oldman hits some of those lines too. This is leisurely, and he's got that like
Leisurely.
weird high pitched thing that he's doing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. How do you think this movie portrayed Orson Welles? Do you think fairly or?
It's interesting. I was thinking about it. He's almost like this godlike figure, like hanging over it, which I think is really, really cool because like that's obviously the legacy of Citizen Kane over the movie itself. So it's kind of meta in that regard. And I don't know. I think it just portrayed him probably as he was. Like he is a guy who was very much a superstar. He knew he was going to be a superstar. He, that was probably deserved because he was a great communicator and like very creative, obviously. And he cuts this deal with RKO at 24. Like it's something else. So like obviously he's going to be a little full of himself, and he probably was in real life, but at the end of the day, like he backs off and he gives Mank his credit. So I think their dynamic is kind of fun and like sort of winking, and it's cool. Like it's almost Spielbergian the way that they don't even really reveal him until the end. Like you see his face when he's on like the phone or whatever that one time, but it's kind of creeping over his shoulder. And then that, I don't know if he's hallucinating or whatever when he's in the hospital bed and he's like, Mank, it's Orson Welles. And he's like, of course it is. And he's like wearing all black and like, he's kind of this like apparition. So like, he's kind of this, he's the mirror image of Mank, or like at least what Mank is realizing that he wants to be or wanted to be and like kind of can't be now. He's the beginning of somebody's sort of superstar career, and Mank is sort of the washed up, never made it type of guy at the end of his career as a writer. So I think it's a really cool dynamic that those two have. The actor does a great job portraying him, I think. So I really liked it.
Next quote is Mank, cigarette, please. Talking to his wife, Sarah. Sarah says, Hermie, if a match gets anywhere near your breath, you'll burst into flames. Love
the
that.
wife, by the way, really great actor. I don't know.
Yes.
She did a great job.
Yeah.
Mankiewicz, and then out of nowhere, a Z.
I did love that.
Yeah.
Mank, you mark my words, Sarah. The Wizard of Oz is going to sink that studio. Just funny stuff.
Yeah, it's you win some, you lose some.
You win some, you lose. He's a little erratic at times. It's fine. Let's see what else we got here. Thalberg, the boy genius, and Irving. He's talking to Irving Thalberg. I'm shocked to see you here. And Mank, I'd be shocked to see me too here. Irving, if only I knew where here was. It reminded me of like Groucho Marx type quotes and jokes.
Yeah, and that's very much what they're going for. Kind of just like snappy and like a lot of punchlines and stuff like that. You really don't see that done anymore. So it's cool to kind of jump back in time with that.
They did echo to a Groucho Marx line where he says, "Any club that wants you, you don't want to be in." So,
and Groucho Marx is like in the movie, isn't he? For like a brief second, I think.
He might make a cameo.
I think he's in the NBM offices at one point.
Yeah. Let's see what else here. Last one here. John Houseman's talking to Mank. The story is so scattered, I'm afraid one will need a roadmap. Mank said, "You mean it's a mess?" Houseman, would you consider simplifying? And Mank, as Pascal once said, if only I had one more time, I would have written a shorter letter. So there you go.
Yeah, a lot of like in-depth, like deep cuts and stuff like that. It's
did people in the 30s like know all these references like off the top of their head?
I don't think so. No,
we talked about that with like Inglourious Bastards, like playing Heads Up. Like
no, yeah, and it's like it's funny. It's done with like the perspective of bird's eye view. So like all the characters are talking in your own voice. That's something that you see a lot in Brian Koppelman's work and David Levine's work, and like they did Rounders, they do Billions. They're guys that like they have these random characters in Billions making these like old like theater references, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like that person probably wouldn't know what like they're talking about, but I think it's cool. It's like a nice touch and sort of like you putting your own signature on it. So
if we want to talk all-time bad movie accents, talk about Malkovich and Rounders.
Yeah, I think he was purposefully bad. I don't know if you heard the Damon story about when they were filming it. I think Damon told us on Simmons. He was the first day of shooting. We get there and he goes, "If you don't have my money, then you are mine." And everyone's like clapping and like acting like it was great. And he just leans into Damon and he's like, "I'm a terrible actor."
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. All right, that was Mank. Any final thoughts here on Mank?
There's actually got some trivia.
Oh, we got a little bit of trivia here.
We do.
Here for that.
So obviously, the first one is written by David Fincher's late father, Jack Fincher. We knew that. Okay, so here's a little technical nerd. Shot on red Monstrochrome 8K cameras. No color version of this film exists. So there you go.
I did fail to bring that up. I'm curious the reason to shoot in 8K when it's in black and white. I guess it's just to get the fine details, but
I think
props.
I think that's probably how they do some of those like blur effects and stuff, but who knows?
Props to them.
Mank has a monaural sound mix similar to what films had before the stereophonic sound system was introduced in the mid-20th century. That means instead of multiple soundtracks dedicated to dialogue, music, and other sound effects, all of the aforementioned were shared on one single track.
I appreciate those touches, and I think, like we said, maybe this movie's not for everybody, but if you appreciate some of that old movie stuff, you will enjoy the movie.
As somebody who does audio production as like a part-time living, like stereo made the world a much better place, but it's cool that they like did this because like that's obviously what they would have done back in the day. So I like that.
Of course.
Amanda Seyfried confessed to Collider that David Fincher made her shoot one particular scene approximately 200 times for an entire week just to get it perfect. She didn't even have any lines of dialogue.
David Fincher is kind of an asshole.
Psycho? Yeah. Oh god. Have you seen that Making of Social Network documentary?
No.
It's awesome. It's on YouTube. Go look it up. It's got a lot of behind the scenes and like Fincher and Sorkin like working through stuff. Him trying out the lines like when
that's got to be interesting.
When they do the
Sorkin
6, 5, 2, 20, it's two of and there's two of me line. Fincher is like literally right behind Armie Hammer, and he's like, "No, do it again." And then he like walks away, and the camera follows him. And he's like, "I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of me." And like he says it to himself like 3 times. Like it's so funny. He's not a bullshitter. Like as much as like it is kind of crazy, like that's his process. So yeah, I give him credit for that.
I'll have to look out for that.
David Fincher and Gary Oldman share a connection in that they were both married to Dania Fiorentino. Fincher was married to her from 1990 to 1995, while Oldman was married to her from 1997 to 2001. As a result, Fincher's daughter and Oldman's 2 sons with Fiorentino are half siblings. Both marriages reportedly ended in disaster. It is rumored that Fincher and Oldman's troubled experiences with Fiorentino became a strong inspiration for directing Gone Girl.
All right, first things first. The way you initially phrased that, I thought you meant like they're both married right now to her. I don't know what the situation was, but
There wouldn't be knowing these two.
Yeah, I mean, if they both share that common ground, it's probably a nice little bonding thing for them. Didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah. No wonder Mank is portrayed as such an asshole. Most of December 2019, the film was shot at the Kemper Campbell Ranch in Victorville, California, where Herman J. Mankiewicz wrote Citizen Kane. Considering the ranch changed very little over years, the location helped reflect the time period of the late 1930s. I did get like a Dust Bowl Depression era vibe from it, which I thought was really well done.
Yeah, they did that really well. I like when movies actually like shoot on the location. Like Spawn Ranch was actually shot like on Spawn Ranch.
Spawn Ranch, yeah.
So it's cool.
Yeah, rewatching The Wire right now, and yeah, it's always a trippy thing when your hometown is like recreated in such great detail. I mean, obviously they shoot on location, but
it was trippy when like I could walk out of my apartment building and be like, oh, they shot The Wire like over there, like right there.
You see like all the buildings and like the domino,
like Domino Sugar, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They get a lot of mileage out of that Domino Sugar.
They do, absolutely.
Gary Oldman wanted to wear elaborate prosthetic makeup to closely resemble the historic Herman J. Mankiewicz, but was persuaded otherwise by David Fincher, who wanted minimal makeup for capturing a more intimate performance. That's probably the right decision.
Yeah, I think Oldman would have had the wrong call there. Yeah, for sure.
The film was originally going to be David Fincher's next project after The Game from 1997, but it was stalled because the studio did not agree with his preference to shoot the film in Citizen Kane-inspired black and white. What does this movie look like if it's in color?
I mean, it's probably not terrible, but it just doesn't have the same feel. Like you're supposed to be in that era.
That's the whole hook of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, maybe that just shows that the creatives are always going to be better than the suits in these scenarios.
Oh yeah.
In one of the big set pieces of Mank, it occurs when a drunk Herman Mankiewicz shows up to Hearst Castle unannounced and crashes a dinner party being thrown by media giant William Randolph Hearst. Among the many guests around the table is Marion Davies, portrayed by Amanda Seyfried, the Hollywood actress who was also Hearst's mistress. In a new cover story On the film for Total Film Magazine, Dance reveals the Mank team performed over 100 takes of the dinner party scene. We did take after take after take, Dan said. Gary Oldman said to Fincher at one point, David, I've done this scene 100 fucking times. And Fincher said, yeah, I know, but this is 101. Reset. Amanda Seyfried stated it was definitely hard about filming so many takes of the scene. Seyfried further explained, but at the same time, it's like theater in that you have the luxury of really nailing the tone and the emotion. It does feel like Groundhog Day in a way, but that's how he captures things that most people don't.
So David Fincher is essentially the anti-Clint Eastwood, basically.
Yeah, he's it's like the Scorsese Larry David clip that I posted the other day. He's like, we're just getting into the emotion of it. Like, Seinfeld, we did 2 takes and we were done. But like that's what he does to like get guys in character. That's what he did to Gyllenhaal in Zodiac. He literally like made him do that shit like however many 100 times in a row. And this was even worse than with anyone else because he wanted him to like lose his mind, like the character loses his mind. Which is interesting.
And we gotta tweet out that link again for Larry David.
Yeah. Fuck you, you fucked up. Larry. I can barely see it.
There's just so much going on in that 2-minute clip.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then the end, like the end of the episode, has him like trying to do this monologue, and he starts like hawking up a loogie. And Scorsese's just like, "What the fuck?" David Fincher admitted to Total Film that his preference for shooting multiple takes exhausted his leading man Gary Oldman in the beginning of the production, adding, "I'm fairly didactic about these are the things that the scene needs to accomplish for me, and we will continue to play to look for ways to underline these ideas that are as subtle as we can make them." Fincher continued, "It's a hard thing to say, actors. I want a cohesive, great performance in the master shot, and then I want a cohesive, great performance in the alternate master. And then I want a cohesive, great performance in the over-the-shoulder, and I want a cohesive, great performance in his over-the-shoulder onto you. And I want the singles, because I don't want to cut a scene based on where you are personally at on Tuesday. I don't think I could go into the edit room knowing that I was going to have to cut around somebody who didn't deliver. Part of it is you cast really great people, get the fuck out of the way." But it sounds like he doesn't get out of the way, though.
Quick aside, explain it to me like I'm 5. What does didactic mean?
I think it just means like straightforward. Let me look it up.
Okay, interesting.
Didactic intended to
we've
teach.
now reached the hooked on phonics version of the show.
Yeah, intended to teach, particularly in having moral instruction as an ulterior motive, probably the wrong definition, in the manner of a teacher, particularly so as to treat someone in a patronizing way. Okay, so he's kind of calling himself out on his own bullshit there.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
David Fincher hired Maurice LaMarche to read every line of Orson Welles' dialogue in order for Tom Burke to practice his performance. LaMarche provided the dub-speaking voice for Vincent D'Onofrio's performance as well as in Ed Wood.
Interesting. Yeah, I really enjoyed that performance. I don't really know how much I've seen that actor other than this, but
neither have I. He looked a lot like Welles.
He did, very much so, with the beard and yeah.
It's generally assumed that Mank was not welcome at San Simeon because he encouraged Marion Davies to drink, not because of his political rants.
What a wild guy! What a wild individual! Just to be a fly on the wall there.
He's a party boy.
Yeah.
David Fincher, in an extensive New York Magazine interview, explained how the film transports you into the period of Hollywood of the 1930s and early 40s through its visuals and sound design. Ren Kleiss, who is a sound designer, and I started talking years ago about how we wanted to make this feel like it was found in the UCLA archives or in Martin Scorsese's basement on its way to restoration, Fincher said. Everything has been compressed and made to sound like the 1940s. The music has been recorded with older microphones, so it has a sort of sizzle and wheeze around the edges. You get it from strings, but you mostly get it from brass. What you're hearing is a revival house, an old theater playing a movie. So he's kind of going into like, there's a lot more of it there, but he kind of like goes into like how they sort of made it look and feel older.
I mean, that's like one of the things that like Death Proof is, in my opinion, the worst Tarantino movie, but it's very much stylized like that. Like the film like skips like a few times, like purposefully. So I do like when they add these little features in, but.
The film marks the 5th collaboration between David Fincher and composers Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Following 9 Inch Nails, Only, The Social Network, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Gone Girl. Unlike Reznor and Ross's previous synthesizer-reliant ambient music scores, the score for Mank used only period-authentic instruments in order to properly reflect the time period of the film.
Interesting. I mean, Gone Girl is a great movie, objectively, but it's probably not one that I would revisit anytime soon.
Yeah, I've heard that's a tough watch.
Yeah.
And then we'll go last one here. Speaking with French magazine Premiere, David Fincher revealed he signed an exclusive deal with Netflix for the next 4 years. Fincher did the deal after having completed Mank 2020 for Netflix. Here's what Fincher said.
What's the best heel turn is going to be? So Fincher signs with Netflix. Week from now, Nolan's going to sign with HBO Max.
Yeah, I was just going to beat you to that. Or he's going to go to Hulu and have live sports.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an exclusivity. It's going to be like a Hulu has live sports commercial with like these massive like set pieces and like this crazy music just like being pumped through the sound.
With Heinz Field exploding from the Bane Batman movie.
Yeah, and Hans Zimmer is like doing the score. Hulu has live sports.
No
yes.
drugs in here.
Here's what Fincher said. Yes, it's an exclusivity deal with Netflix for another 4 years. Fincher continued by jokingly saying, depending on Mank's reception, I'll either go see them sheepishly asking what I can do to redeem myself, or take the attitude of the arrogant asshole who will require making other films in black and white. He further added, no, I'm here to deliver them content.
I wanted the latter. Oh, well.
Yeah, whatever it means. Likely to bring them spectators in my small sphere of influence. Fincher will have creative control of his projects now because he signed this Netflix deal. Fincher goes on to explain, it's also because I like to work like Picasso painted, to try to break the shape or change the operating mode. He claims to like the idea of having a body of work, as he mentioned. Yes, it feels strange after 40 years in this profession to only have 10 films under my belt. Well, 11, but 10 that are mine. Yes, objectively, it is a pretty terrifying observation. So he wants to change it up. He wants to just go somewhere that he's just able to work and not worry about the bullshit, which is different than our boy Chris, for example.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what the one that was not his. Is that Aliens 3 or I don't know what that
Probably, yeah, right? I think he wrote that.
I don't know. Could be.
Who could say, honestly.
Who could say? Who could say?
Okay. Well, that's Mank.
That is Mank, folks. You should
Mank?
watch it.
Mank.
Yeah, I mean, we both enjoyed it. It's something that eventually I'm going to go back to and rewatch. But
I will say my one throwing tomatoes is that he never whipped out the Drexel Spivey voice when he's sitting there in the bed.
That would have been legendary. It just slipped into the character.
Get the fuck out of here. I'm trying to read like this motherfucking script like a motherfucker. Don't you take my fucking liquor away, woman.
The fact that that's the same guy, the same person, is just mind numbing, really.
Gary Oldman, more range than Ed Reed.
Yeah. Say that again. All right. Yeah, I think that was a banger as far as 2020 movies go. It's refreshing to see something new. Won't really get anything until the Wonder Woman movie drops on Christmas Eve, but I believe it's my turn here for the next movie review.
Go for it.
Been meaning to get back to this one in a while. We've talked about it one or two times here on the show. Let's do Superbad.
Okay. Now we're having fun. Now we're having fun. This is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it's a streaming on Hulu, so won't have to pay for this one, and it is a absolute banger.
I cannot wait to hear you say some of those quotes. Let's just say that. I can't wait for them to come out of your mouth.
Okay. I can be Michael Cera. I could be McLovin.
You're doing all of them. You're reading them all.
Okay. I prepared for this, so we're good.
Good. Okay.
All right. Cool.
I'm excited.
He's a freak. He's the fastest kid alive.
It's just fair. Yeah, but we'll get into that. As far as this episode, really appreciate you guys listening. Hope you enjoyed Mank and our episode covering it. And hope you go ahead and check out Superbad, like you mentioned, on Hulu to get ready for next week. In the meantime, if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us if you've not already. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and a review if you're on Apple. And follow us on social media. You can follow the show on Twitter at BingoPod. You can follow me at Jake Luke. That's LOUQE. And Matt is at mpine_. And follow us on Instagram at thatsabingopodcast. And if you're listening on RSS, you can also check us out on YouTube for the video version. But yeah, appreciate everyone listening. Hope you guys have a great week. And watch Superbad.
Booyah.
Peace.